let me also introduce our panel and describe the debates process. First and foremost, to be innovative at ADB, we are going to impose strict time limits. So you will see something will happen if you exceed your time, and that would not look good. So this is a warning. Now, we have two sides, bottom-up approach side and the top-down approach side for climate action. The bottom-up side would be represented by Sohail Hassani. He is our principal energy specialist, now with the Central and West Energy Division. He's our champion for thinking outside the box and designing and leading innovative projects. So he would be a good supporter for bottom-up. We also have Steve Groff, who is our Vice President for Operations 2. Since we have a lot of people in the audience who have no idea what is Operations 2, that includes East Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific. For us, he's our champion for promoting individual effort for sustainability. For as long as we have known and seen him, he walks and bikes a lot and he walks up to the 8th floor to his office. I mean, to me, that is commendable. Now, ADB staff will also be supported by a youth champion, and she is Mikey De Vega, who is a legal management student from De La Salle University. But more importantly for today, she's the president of the De La Salle University Debate Society. So watch it, guys. Now, these three debaters will also be supported by Heidi, in case they have any time left. She will do the mop-up and make all the important points that have been forgotten. So you have a very important role too. Now the top side, or the top-down side, will be represented by our Priti Bhandari, our climate change advisor at RSDD. But what's more important is that before joining ADB, she was the director at UNFCCC. Now let's see, how many people in the audience know what is UNFCCC? You guys don't count. Okay, the young gentleman. One of the youth there you go, the guy with the hat. What is UNFCCC? Close. Convention on Climate Change. So, but that's, okay. But that's very good. You know, we are trying to also promote no acronym, so that's why I had to spell it out. So that's good. So she knows everything about climate change. She will be also supported by Juan Miranda, our Managing Director General. He's also very supportive of the No Impact Week. So thank you, Juan. And before being MDG, he was the Director General in South Asia and also led ADB-wide initiative to drive innovation and efficiency. So that's good. Now the ADB staff on the top-down side would also be supported by a youth champion, Vanessa Kabakugnan. I don't know if I pronounced her name. She's a communication arts student from University of Santo de Tomas. And more importantly, she's the president of the UST Debater Council. So you also have a good support there. And these three primary debaters of top side will be supported by Ancha, in case they have forgotten something. He's also a long-time climate change specialist. Now, we will have 3 minutes for each side or each of the debater to give you their points. After they are finished, we will have an open round of Q&A for about 15 to 20 minutes. And after that, we will take the vote again to decide who won the debate. But before we go forward, I want to see how many of you were able to give the baseline, your vote. Ooh, not that many. Chris, how come you were not able to? It works. I had one of these. It worked for me. Give it a shot. We do need a baseline. So it's very important that as many of you can give baseline. It would be good. Because I don't want to say, stand up if you support this side, that side, because then, you know, people might say, okay, Shui De Lu, I remember what you said. So we got 41 votes. Let's see if we can increase that to at least 50 or more. So everybody try. Chris and others, if you cannot see the thing, you might want to come over here, and then you can come back and support your side. So give the baseline. That's very, very important. Now, we had a coin toss to decide who will go first, and the bottom up won the coin toss. So I will request their side to go first. And who's doing the timekeeping? You are doing the timekeeping, and also Carolyn will give you an alert sign for 1 minute and 30 seconds, and then drop dead.
Magandang hapon ang mga kababayan ko, mga kabamundo ko. Tayo ang gawa ang diferensya sa ating mundo, di ba? Tayo ang gawa ang ating kapaligiran. So it only goes to show that we really are the ones that will make a difference when it comes to climate change. And what better day to celebrate the importance of bottom-up approaches than the anniversary of the People's Power Revolution and the celebration that's going on just down the street from us today. So we think that bottom-up approaches are really what's going to make a difference when it comes to climate change. We've been focused on top-down solutions, on top-down approaches for almost 40 years. And what do we have to show for it in terms of greenhouse gas emissions? Greenhouse gas emissions have been going up over those 40 years. They haven't been going down. And also, the probability of a binding and enforceable agreement coming out of the Paris talks later this year on climate change is vanishingly small. So it really is our responsibility. As many of you may know, in the 18th COP, which was the climate change discussions in Doha, Yeb Sanyo, who is the Philippine Climate Change Commissioner, said, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? If not here, then where? And in a related quote, Einstein said, doing the same thing over and over again is the definition of insanity. So really, what we need to do is we need to take individual responsibility for climate change. We make the decisions on how to get to work or get to school. We make the decisions on what to buy, on what to use, what to reuse, what to throw away. We make decisions on how we run our houses or how we run our rooms. So it is our individual decisions that are going to make a difference in terms of reducing demand for the kinds of things that power greenhouse gas emissions, the kind of things that result in increased greenhouse gas emissions. So taken together, all the individual actions that we can do, that we can take, are going to get us on the road to a better climate, are going to get us on the road to a better environment. It's not going to be the governments that tell us what to do. It's going to be us taking responsibility for the individual actions that we take every single day. So there's another related quote that I'll give you by a Chinese philosopher named Lao Tzu, who said, do the difficult things while they are easy, do the great things while they are small. A journey of 1,000 steps must begin with a single step. Now this isn't anything small, it's not a short journey, but it must begin with a single step, and that single step needs to begin with you. Thank you.
I invite the top-down side.
Magandang hapon. I don't need to say anything more, because what I would say will convince you that he's totally ill-advised. For 40 years he's been ill-advised if he believes in that, but I don't think he believes in that. Let me explain to you why he is wrong, and that lot is wrong. Tony Blair, who knows about him? He said, it's not about crime, it's about the causes of crime. So I say to you, when it comes to CO2, this horrible, horrible thing that we got around us, it's not about CO2 alone, it's about the causes of CO2. But how are we going to fix them? Are we going to fix them with individual initiatives here and there, scattered? No, we will not. Individual initiatives make a difference, but they're part of an ecosystem of measures. Going up the steps instead of taking an elevator is laudable. Of course, we have to do that. The one step, Steve takes more. I sometimes go with him and my tongue is out. But I take him because I believe, but also because I want to get fit. You see this six-pack outfit? So I appeal to you. I appeal to you here that it's not about individual initiatives alone, but about something else. Let me share something with you. What does Army Josh, Hilltop Tours, Joanna Fish, Alps, Amihan, Lancaster, Marikina, and Fergina Express have in common? They are buses on EDSA. And today, a great day, the EDSA Revolution Day, we have a day that was worse than others, but is really bad because every day they mess up the system, the traffic system in this place. So it's not about tricycles. It's not about walking. I like to take a bike, but I can't, and nor can you. So it's about bigger things like that. Now, where do bigger things begin? At the top. We have never reached the top. We've been down. That's where they are. The top, ladies and gentlemen, is ADV to begin with. We have to begin with us. Our strategy, our narrative for infrastructure must become more green. And as it does, we'll have more renewable energy, more transport systems, mass transport systems, less buses on the road, less pollution, more beautiful skies, a better quality of life for you. And my last point is that unless the top does the job, we will condemn you, the youth, in perpetuity to wrong things. And wrong things is not what we want. We're accountable. Let's stop it now. Believe in us.
Wow, bigger things happens at the top. Maybe I've been missing something. Since 1988, we have been waiting. That's when IPCC was formed. How many of you were around in 1988? I don't think we can wait anymore. Let me just go through. When I looked at the discovery of global warming, it started in 1800. Then many years later, there was the IPCC report. One, which says maybe we should do something. Two, another 5 years later, yes, we should. Finally, it happened, then we will. You know what do they do this meeting? This is useless. They decide in a meeting, when are we going to meet next? That's what they do. I was in Copenhagen. I came back. I said, okay, let me take some personal action. I did a project with ADB, electric light bulb project. It took us 3 years to change 10 million light bulbs. 10 million people could have changed in 5 minutes. Sorry, Juan, I don't agree. You see, we are on a boat. Every time I listen to these top-down people, I go sleep in the dark. I wake up, feels like I'm in the deck of Titanic. We don't know where are we going. It is dark. And suddenly somebody saying, hey, the boat is sinking. You know when that happened? That happened in 1988 when the IPCC was formed. And they have been discussing. We are waiting in the boat. There is no lifeboat, by the way. There's only one. Waiting. They are meeting. Every time we said something will happen, oh no, we have decided we'll meet tomorrow again. How long do we have to wait? The EDSA revolution happened in how many days, how many weeks? We have been waiting 35 years. So time has come, the boat is sinking, we have to throw stuff. When we throw stuff from the boat, we throw, doesn't matter who brought it in. And some of the people who don't agree, we throw them as well. Don't you think? So I think what the slogan should be here, like, we had enough. Wake up, Captain, we are leaving. Wake up, let's go, we move. Thank you.
Good. The top-down side.
Hello, hello. Hello. Oh, okay. Good morning, everyone. And contrary to the very humorous speech we've received from the other side, I'm going to have to come in with a more serious thought. We have to understand that, as we can see from our previous speaker, climate change discussion has always been the gray area. It's always a blame game. We don't know who should start first, whether or not someone should lead, or whether or not we should start within our houses. We think, especially in institutions who wield the most authority and who can induce the most change, like our local governments here in Manila, or even our larger sphere like our continental or our regional, like APEC or the Rio 20, for instance, or even to the extent of the international community, there are always two questions that plague us. Primarily in developing countries, it is always the question of whether or not we should put premium on economic growth. The reasons for that are very, very simple, and all debaters, I agree, will know this. Number one, you must always secure the basic needs first. Your food, your water, and your shelter, which comes at a high price, and which is a cause of the great inequalities in income and access to basic rights, must be something that the government must put all their efforts and resources in. This is why in our democratic Manila in the Philippines, we have the People's Power Revolution because we want more money, for instance, or we want more laws, or we want more rights. And though that's why we think that in governments like Philippines, the only way to minimize these inequalities is to actually prioritize rapid economic growth to prioritizing productivity and profit gaining. But on the flip side of the coin, it is always the question of sustainability of natural resources as well. We know that countries like Philippines, who are highly reliant on our agricultural sector, highly reliant on our ability to import and export grains, fruits, and vegetables, are always subject to the whims of even the smallest environmental changes. We received this when we had Typhoon Haiyan. We received this when we had the previous typhoons that plagued us, that even until now, we still are recovering from it. We think that those increases in droughts or flooding actually destabilizes this crop. That's why the role of government institutions is very, very simple and very, very crucial coming from the top-down approach. You have to make sure that when it comes to the questioning of maximizing profit at the expense of environmental degradation, the government must draw the line through effective policies and implementation of sanctions for private businesses especially. Those who refuse to cut down on carbon emissions, those who refuse to adopt environmental friendly methods within their internal structures must be forced into accountability. And you can only do that when you have the authority to change those laws. Thank you.
No, not quite. Now, some of you have just joined in the back, so give your baseline. You still have time to give baseline. How many votes do we have? Do we know? Jude? Okay, so those of you who have not yet given your initial baseline vote, you still have time to do so. Excellent job in terms of timekeeping. So both sides done very well. Let's continue with the bottom up.
Let's imagine that we are in Titanic right now. And we have two ways to survive. It's either we lessen the weight on the boat or we wait for the captain to do something, right? On our side, we start pulling those luggages and throwing them into the ocean, while their side will sit down and wait for the captain to say something. They will say, "Captain, the boat is sinking, what do we do?" Right? That's not proper, especially in the case of climate change. Because if you take a look at it, even from Vanessa's argumentation, you will see that the government will have many different priorities. And sometimes those things like economic advantages or even the fact that you want to set your own agenda for the next term, like when he sat down in Copenhagen criteria, they talked about what they're going to talk about a few years from now, right? So in that case, you cannot always trust the government. You cannot always trust the captain to make decisions for you. Because in the first place, will that captain make a decision at that specific point in time? And two, is that decision that the captain is making even good to begin with, right? That's why, coming from our side, what we wanted to say was that it's important to inspire change. Because it's not just about walking up the stairs. It's not just about not riding the elevator. It's not just about riding your bike every day. It's the fact that when you're doing something to start change, that's when people start seeing things that they can relate to. So when you see him walking up the stairs, well, you're inspired to be fit, but more than ever, you're inspired to do something also in order to change what's happening. Because the problem with the government is you don't ever see what they're doing, right? You don't even know what kinds of papers they're passing. But when you see change, when it happens right outside your doorstep, that's when you see it happen. And that's when you get inspired to do something. That's why when people started seeing, oh, 1 minute. Okay, that's why when you see people burning themselves in the Arab Spring, what happened? There were rallies everywhere and they started to change the system that was oppressing them. That's why even in the Philippines, when we saw that Ninoy Aquino was killed, when we saw that our fellow Filipinos were rallying up EDSA, that's when we started the movement. In the same way, climate change can be solved when people unite with one another. And it's not just about simple scattered movements, but the fact that when you create one movement by yourself, you're able to also inspire change with other individuals. And that's when you're able to really change and solve the problem of climate change. Thank you.
Time we may have to have applause meter, to judge how things are. Now we have Preeti Bhandari giving top-down side.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I see that our bottom-up people are so obsessed with the Titanic that they don't realize there may not be any water left in the world if climate change takes the course that it is supposed to. So I don't know. They seem to have forgotten the fact that if we do not limit the temperatures to the threshold of 2 degrees centigrade, forget water, forget food, forget any energy to walk up the stairs. So what are you talking about? And unless and until you make changes in your government and you deserve the government that you elect for, your government will not be able to take the decisions in the multilateral fora to reach the climate objective that all the countries are hoping to achieve in Paris this year, later this year. And my dear friend Sohail talked about Copenhagen and how he went off to sleep over there. Well, my dear friend, Copenhagen pledges are what are driving us to a climate agreement now. And the bottom-up pledges that came up from the Copenhagen Agreement, and here by bottom-up, I do not mean individuals. I recognize the power of the individual, but by bottom-up, I mean lack of coordinated action by countries. And if those bottom-up pledges had led to anything, the bottom-up pledges currently are leading us to a gap of meeting this 2 degrees centigrade target. There is 8 to 10 gigatons that we would be lower if all these bottom-up pledges were to be met. So if you leave the governments alone and if you leave them to any action that they want to take and let 1,000 flowers bloom without a legitimate top-down climate architecture, you are not going to survive, my dear friend. So please bear that in mind. And just to give you a few, scientific facts, you were talking about IPCC 1988, the biggest fallacy according to you. If it wasn't for IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the scientific body that has clearly said that if we do not reduce our emissions by 2055, by the way, I may not be there, but all of you over here, the youth in this room, you would be there. If we do not reduce our emissions by then, or we become carbon neutral, we'll be all dead in the long run. So please give support to your government so that they can sign on the agreement in Paris later this year and keep taking your individual actions. But your individual actions will only complement a top-down regime where there is global coordinated architecture which has legitimacy, which has fairness, and which has equity considerations built in. Go for supporting your government to sign a Paris deal. Thank you.
Okay, so both sides did a great job, so congratulations to both sides. Now, our timekeeper will let us know how much savings you have in time, so we will let you know in just a second. But in the meantime, those of you who have just come in, if you still want to vote, can you put up that site? We will give you your savings, not to worry, as soon as I get the total. Get the baseline up in case somebody wants to do the baseline. And how much? I like this accuracy, 633 seconds for bottom ups. That's very good. 13 seconds. So you guys have been very good at using your time. So why don't you guys go first with your 63 seconds?
Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, the Orange Revolution, the Rose Revolution, Jasmine Revolution, Arab Springs. What do all of these things have in common? They start by people. Behind every government initiative, there's got to be someone taking the lead. How many politicians do you remember to this day who's changed anything? If any change to come, it is from an individual who's brave, courageous, who dared to take a stand. Now, Captain, the boat is sinking. We're not waiting for you and your working groups anymore. We, the people, will take power, will take action, will do something about it. We'll start unloading this boat. That's the call to action for everyone in this room. Don't listen to what the government has to say. The government can pass any acts they want, but if it doesn't come from the people don't ask for it, it's not needed, it won't happen. One great example is the civil rights movement. When the U.S. has passed the Anti-Slavery Act, the black Americans were not free to live the lives that they want to live and to have the American dream until Martin Luther King take that march into Capitol Square and call on everybody to change their action. And with his speech, "I Have a Dream," he was able to change the world for black Americans. And I think at this time, we all should have that dream to make the world a better place, and it starts with us, the bottom-up approach.
Your precious seconds.
We have 13 seconds to say that people power is what you need to change power at the top. But power at the top to coordinate what we do at the bottom and to ensure that you are heard, to ensure that they can sign up for things that will change your lives and the lives of many like you.
Okay, now let's see. This audience is much, much younger than normal, so I think we will have lots of questions, I hope. Who wants to go first? We will have 15 or 20 minutes of Q&A, depending on how good the questions are. Your questions should be short and specifically directed to one or the other teams. Okay, who wants to go first? If not, I'll order call on one of you. Oh, there we go. Can we get her a microphone? No, here are a couple others.
Hello. First of all, thank you for giving us that really nice debate. It was very informative and entertaining from the back. But my question is from the bottom up team. I know that movements exist, especially for climate change. Like last year, you have Sanyo doing this fasting to encourage people to commit, countries to commit in the negotiations. But if we're going to rely on individual actions, how do we make sure that we sustain the energy and the momentum to the point that it actually influences politicians and decision makers at the top? Thank you.
Actually, many of the global changes we see today has been put on the agenda by people movement. For example, in 1970, we had the first Earth Days. And in 1960 was when we had talked about data for global climate change. So it's taken years and years for people to get things on the agenda, but then the government was never there until the people started talking about it. Then it gets on the agenda of the government. And the job of the people is to continue to lobby to keep that on the agenda, and that's important.
I just want to add two things. One thing you are missing out. This is not a project that the government can abandon and do a study to see how we can do next time. we have only one boat. That's very important. As Preeti said, there may not be a Titanic. So please take that point. Other point is, they had 35 years. Thank you.
Okay, after that passionate speak, the next question for the top down. Anybody? Next question for top down? Otherwise, I'll have to call on some of you. There we go.
Hi, my question for the top-down team is, how can you assure that governments who become signatories for treaties that concerns climate change will not be tokenistic at the end of the day?
Look, the top-down approach is not just about signing treaties. It's about taking actions that will make a real difference. And if you're looking, for example, at the top of ADB as an institution, the things that we can do with governments will have a meaning in the policies the governments will follow, because we finance investments. This guy who was criticizing the 35-year-olds like me, I wasn't born when these treaties were invented, actually was given money by ADB to finance tricycles in Manila. But what does that mean? It means that we are making a difference. We put not only emblems, but we change things that are important. So when I said to you earlier on, and I appeal to you again to think about it, is that ADB can make a difference, and many like us together collectively can make a difference by changing, for example, the narrative on infrastructure, by going more green, with more renewable, with more energy efficiency, with more transport systems, with more forests, if you like. We don't have anyone who works on forests. So I think that the top, I want to redefine. Look at me. I'm part of the top, but I don't feel like I'm in the top. I'm part of you. So if you trust me, you should trust the top-down approach on this. It's about institutions, and it's about making governments change their viewpoints about what they do. It's about using you. It's about using our colleagues from the bottom up. It's about putting together ideas and then investments that really make a huge difference in the countries where this difference hasn't been made. And by the way, the climate problem is not contained to here in Manila, Marikina, or the Philippines. It's a worldwide phenomenon. So our institutions, with our knowledge and our investments, talk to others, others talk to governments, and governments, hopefully the good and the bad ones, will take action, because this is for our children.
Okay, that's very good. Now, next question. Yes, the gentleman with glasses. No, too long. I have to pull the plug. The questions and answers have to be quick.
So this is for the bottom-up side. So one of the most telling stories of Philippine development is the closing down of the Bataan nuclear power plant because of fears of public health that were mostly started by people on the ground. My question is, for the bottom-up people, how do you transcend the susceptibility of the people on the ground to fear, paranoia, and things that might interfere with top-down policies?
Well, I think that's an excellent question, and I think really at the end of the day, it comes down to the availability of information and the reliability of that information, and people and having a free press, very much of a free press, which exists in this country, which exists in a large number of countries, which exists in more countries today than it did 20 years ago, 30 years ago, not because of government action, but because of people action, because of the work that individuals did. And I think one thing that this team has been saying is that, oh, well, you walking up the steps or you riding your bicycle is not going to make a difference. Well, yes, the truth is that one person doing it doesn't make a difference, but all of us doing it does make a difference.
Next question for top down. Anybody? There we go. Thank you. And we will have one more question for each side, so get ready with your last question.
Okay, thank you very much. For the top down, I would like to have raised this one question. We concede that policies concerning these kinds of matters always originate from the top. However, there have been a lot of raising issues that there have been not, say, sufficient consultations, or the people actually being affected by the policy are not really consulted. How do you actually address this?
That's a very important question. I mean, the process of consultation. But that is where many institutions have shown good examples how to consult. Whether it is a e-trikes project that we did in Philippines or any other project in Cambodia, we do consult. So we institute mechanisms and also give good examples to adequately consult. The issue here, I just wanted to supplement my top-down approach. Just because the global climate challenge is something that we have already passed a stage that simple individual efforts are not going to address this challenge adequately. So we need top-down decisions and of course cooperation from all people involved. So just relying on the center of the central point of the debate is which is more important. Yes, individual actions are important, but the top-down decision and imposition is more important today. Thank you.
Thank you. So, one last question for each side. There we go. Somebody from this side should also think about a question.
Hi, I have a question for the bottom up, because you've been forwarding the value of individual action, right? That's the entire that's like a strong rhetoric coming from your side. But then my problem is, how exactly do you I don't see the exclusivity of it on your side. Like, coming from top down, we've told us that they have the government instigating that kind of action, right? Now, for your side, I don't how could you tell us that individual action is only going to happen if like if we focus more on like the individual levels, on the ground levels? Like, yeah, what is its exclusive value therefore?
I'm sorry. So your question is, what is the exclusivity
Of individual
Of
action,
individual
given that
action.
it also happens on them when it's the government fueling that kind of action.
Okay. Here's the thing. What we were saying was that it's important it's not about just having individual action. It's the fact that the action comes from the people and it's not dictated on them. The primary difference is if you have a dictated action coming from the government, most likely that's not something that's going to generate the same kind of inspiration that happens when you see your fellow person trying to do something to change the world, right? So the mutual exclusivity does not lie in the action. It lies with the impact of the action to other people as well. But second, there's also a factor of the ability of that action to really change things. Because on their side, right, if you're always going to rely on people in the top, right, who keep talking about what is the correct approach, there's a high tendency for them to forget what's really happening on the ground level. And that's when you're not able to really, That's when you're not able to tie reality with your action. Whereas on our side, if you're going to have people generating the movement by themselves and they see the reality of how climate change is affecting them, then that's when they're able to really do something that they know can change their situation and in the long run, change the entire problem of climate change.
Thank you. The last question for top down.
Yeah, well, good afternoon. I understand this thinking about going from the bottom up and the top down. This is actually more for the top down group. As they said, it's been 35 years. I was 2 years old then. But my question is, it's about climate change, but you have to talk about changing the people on top for that to happen down to the bottom. The crux of the matter is, how do you change the minds of the people on top so that it could actually filter down the bottom?
Okay, that's exactly our number one point. It's not the number two or the number three. It's the number one point. Use your power to change those that make decisions. And those who make decisions are those who are supposed to align different positions at the bottom. So the power is with you. But to align, you have to have a structure, otherwise you have chaos. And if you want a revolution, it is good because you were fixing a problem, but at the end, you have to have a government. Now, you may not like it, change it. And with this, I think the argument is exactly the same. So if those of us at the top, and by the way, Steve Groff should be on this side because he's part of the top. He is very much part of the top. He's even more top than anybody else in here, unless the president is here, but he's not. So if you don't like the way we behave, if you don't like the way we do things, changes. That's your power, but changes for the good. And get proper information, be professional about the way we do things, including the statistics, because otherwise our credibility will falter. And because we cross borders, we go beyond the Philippines, beyond ADB, you got to be professional about the way you come down. So change us. I know you will trust me, but if you don't, change me.
Climate change is also a problem of intergenerational equity. Just because you mentioned that you were only 2 years old when 35 years ago, the issue is same thing. After 35 years, what will happen to those people if we use up all our carbon emissions? I mean, if we continue to do. So that is where this top-down approach is going to be important to address this problem of intergenerational equity. And also between the countries who created the problem and the countries that are suffering from the problem. So there again, for example, Philippines is not a major contributor of greenhouse gas emissions, but still it continues to suffer from the climate change. So this is, so if it is the question, so you need a top-down approach to look at these distributional aspects, equity aspects. So this cannot be done by simple individuals. Thank you.
Yeah, first, before we end the debate, I would like to give a good round of applause for both sides. Excellent job. We are well within our time. 12:50 was more or less our ending time, so we had, 2:50, so we are doing very well. Now, the post-debate poll. So you might have to say it for those on this side who may not be able to read, but you go to their website and give your opinion or your poll.
So for the post-debate poll link, it's bit.ly/1 big E, big P, small c, big J, small b, small y. Yeah. bit.ly/1 capital E, capital P for Papa, little c for China, big J for Japan, small b for Bangladesh, and small y for Yerevan.
Any issues? Are you getting it? So, can you announce?
So we have 68 people who have voted. Keep going. Come on, we have 1 more minute. Vote, vote, vote. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Do it. 72 now. 30 seconds. That's 1, capital E, capital P, small c, capital J, small b, small y. Where are we at now?
Okay, I will narrate the vote because you cannot see it from there. Is the baseline? Baseline was 47 bottom up, 37 top down, and 16 undecided. So 47, 37, 16 undecided. All right, what is the final? Okay. So we have 72 people who have decided, 50 for bottom up, 40 for top down, and 10% still undecided. So here, there's an undecided because 3% vote shift on both sides. They got 3% more, you got 3% more. So I hate to say it, but today we cannot declare a winner because this is a draw. Because each of you got 3% of the vote from undecided. From 16, undecided went to 10, and each of you got 3% more. So this is like, you have soccer, what the kick out thing, what do you call it? Penalty, yeah. So I don't know. We don't have time for penalty today because we must end on time. Okay. No, since this is so close, maybe we can try something different. We have a couple minutes. Those of you who thought that bottom up one, clap, and I will figure out the applause meter. All right, take a deep breath and then decide. Oh, no, it's okay. We heard you. It's not cumulative, it's just the maximum. All right, now for the top-down side, if you thought that they won, clap. Hey, interference. No, oh. Okay, I think it's pretty even. So as far as today is concerned, I must say that it was a good debate. I would encourage the top-down side to give the message to the top people here that we should have such open debate and discuss things more openly and have a top-down change at ADB to take the climate change much more seriously. Thank you, everybody, and thank you guys for participating.